Cantelmo here with another vibration. I'm out for my afternoon walk on Halloween 2019. Day that will live in infamy. I'll tell you why later. Now listen up. See that? I think y'all know what that is. That's a new batch of DMT. I'm going to try this new batch for the first time. Now let me talk about this particular motif, if you will. Let me get Terence McKenna about this. This particular syntactical motif for inhalation of the modality, spirit molecule. What I like about this mechanism for ingenuity, this is an ingenuity mechanism. A very simple pipe used for inhaling DMT. It's called an ingenuity mechanism. And you notice that's somewhat yellowish. Yellow is good for a fellow when it comes to DMT. Now listen up. What I like about this particular shape, see how it's relatively small? The ball at the end is relatively small. What's nice about that is you can heat it up you can heat from the bottom. You always heat from the bottom. You never put the flame on top. You don't burn DMT, you vaporize DMT. And with this particular ingenuity mechanism, when you do vaporize it from below with a torch lighter, not a match. Come on, people. This is 2019. We're not back in the Middle Ages. You don't use matches. If you use a match on this, it gets all black and you can't heat it up hot enough. Come on now. So you get your torch lighter and you get this ingenuity mechanism. What's nice about the small shape of that end area is that there isn't much air in there. When you start heating from below and it vaporizes, if there's the bigger the bowl, the bigger that area, the harder it is to get the whole thing up to the right temperature. In this particular ingenuity mechanism, when you hit it with the torch lighter, just about 3 or 4 seconds after you start heating that baby from the bottom, you get this puff of white, beautiful white vapor that comes up. And you hit it, and that whole bulb just fills up with this beautiful white as snow vapor that you just do a nice big, oh my goodness, oh, it's so good. It's so good. And that's really the best way to do it, with that little, I guess they call that an oil burner. I was never a smoking guy. I never smoked much. I smoked a little pot. When I smoke pot, I feel stupid. Could you imagine me feeling stupid? Yeah, when I smoke pot, I always feel like I'm about 1/10 of a second behind real time. Like I'm always trying to catch up to my own thoughts. And you guys know how fast my thoughts are. So it's pretty hard to catch up to those when you're high. That's why I never really like smoking pot. I wasn't a smoker. Of course, I was never into crack or meth smoking, as you might have picked up. So, I'm new to this whole crack pipe modality. But, the best way to do DMT, I think, is in that crack pipe modality. The 3-hit method I really like. I'm a big fan of it. I like to be able to mediate the intake. Do a hit. And here's the amazing thing about this DMT that's so hard to figure out. Is the the effect of DMT, and here's why I need help with this research. Sure, I've done it over 4,000 times. Sure, I know more than everyone else about the science behind this. A lot of you guys out there, you've done it a lot of times, but you're not scientists like I am. I'm out here alone doing science on this, on the cutting edge, and I do need assistance, but people just, no one ever shows up. People say, oh, I want to help you. Yeah, but okay, but you know, if you're 1,000 miles away and you've never done DMT, it's kind of hard for you to help me. As much as I want you to help, I want you to be a part of this. It's a little bit difficult. So I am always on the lookout for. It's so hard to find good help. That's what it boils down to. Now, I know you guys are wondering where I'm going with this video, as well as into the future there. You see that bridge there? That's the bridge over the Big Tahunga Wash in Lakeview Terrace, California. That's near the Angeles National Golf Course. Highly regarded golf course. I don't golf, I'm not old enough. You might recognize that particular bridge in, Jay Leno does a series, you know, he's a car guy, Jay Leno from The Tonight Show. He's a comedian as well, you might have heard of him. He does a car show, and one of the main stretches that he uses in that show is this bridge, and he goes back and forth, and on Tuesdays, it's usually Tuesdays, there's Jay Leno with his big, goofy, huge head and that chin that he borrowed from another solar system or something. And he gets in one of his old cars, and he likes to use convertibles. And there you see Jay Leno going, most of his body sticking way up out of these little old cars that he likes to drive around in. Anyway, so you might recognize that bridge. But I'm heading up to an old abandoned house up there that burned down in one of the fires that occur here regularly. If you're watching the news at all, you know that right now there are about 10 very serious fires that are raging in California. And they're so terrifying. We've encroached on Mother Nature. We've put houses everywhere you can put a house. And we get up against the mountains, and especially when you're on a mountain, a mountainside or a ridge of a mountain. I mean, everybody knows hot air goes up, so you get a fire burning and it goes up. Fire on the mountain, and when you got a house on a mountain or on the side of a mountain, and the fire starts burning, man, it's fucking scary, because all roads lead to your house, and it's really scary. And humans have done a hell of a job at squeezing all of the goodness out of Mother Nature, and just, you know, we want more out of Mother Nature. We got to get control of ourselves, and one of the ways we're going to get control of ourselves is by getting back in touch with the reason we're here on Earth. And anyone who is an atheist is not ever going to understand the reason that we're here on Earth. Because it turns out there is a God, and there is a spirit world, and there are aliens, and there is life on other planets. We are not the first ones to the life party. In fact, we're showing up a little bit late. And those of you who haven't done DMT, you're still going to say, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not a scientist. I went to Yale. I have a degree in biochemistry and biophysics. I'm a scientist. Well, he doesn't really know much about science. Well, my entire career was in science. I applied science after college and became a self-made millionaire. I've since spent a good chunk of my extra money promoting DMT to the benefit of everyone but myself at this point. So I was an atheist, I am a scientist, I was the least likely person to ever utter the words God, unless I was in the throes of an orgasm. So the fact that I am now preaching about the fact that there is a spirit world and there is a God out there, people should take note. Hey, you know, our society is so screwed up. The way we've become so out of touch with the spirit world. And as a society, we look down upon people who talk about God, religious people. You know, in America, we give lip service to the concept of freedom of religion. And really, and especially when politicians talk about their support of freedom of religion, really what they are saying is that they don't want to offend any potential donors. But in Washington, you see very little actually fighting for real freedom of religion. Because real freedom of religion would include all types of religions, Native American religions that use sacraments like mescaline and peyote. Oh no, that doesn't, you know, that's not really freedom of religion because the Indians in America, the ones that we slaughtered, they don't have a lot of money. But there are other religious groups that do have money. And politicians give lip service to them. Freedom of religion in America. But in practice, we are a very atheistic, anti-spiritual society. And because America has staked out this position as world leader, our despicable denigration of spirituality has spread out to the rest of the world, and it's polluted the rest of the world. And now, well, you just have to just look around. We got a situation on this planet. We got a situation, and it's manageable. We're gonna figure this out. But if anybody thinks that by just plowing forward with a society and an economic system based on consumption, buying more and more shit, buying stuff on Monday to bring it in the front door to use during the week, and on Sunday you shove it out the back door into the trash can and keep going in this cycle of disgusting consumption and abuse of Mother Nature. It's just horrible. Anyone who thinks that that's the future, you got rocks in your head. I get worked up when I talk about this because it's so, those of us who have done DMT, who have done ayahuasca, and to a person, every single person who has done ayahuasca or DMT says, oh my God, there was life before I did ayahuasca, and there's life now, and never the twain shall meet. And it gives you incredible strength when you are one of the people who see the future, and you know things that 99.999% of the people on the planet don't know anymore because we've gotten out of touch with the spirit world. It gives you incredible strength. People ask me, how do you go on? Like your whole family has disowned you because of this DMT thing, and all your friends think you're crazy because of this DMT thing. They say, how do you have the strength to go on? It's because I know that I'm right, and the people who have done DMT, they're right, and the people who have done ayahuasca, they're right. And those poor people, and I was one of their detractors, the poor people who they're not wealthy, and they're not scientists, and they don't have a leg to stand on. And a lot of times, the people who are hurting most in the world are the first ones to try some alternative thing, to find some sense of comfort, to find a way to go forward. So the people who did ayahuasca over the last few decades in America, and DMT over the last few decades, and they came back and said, whoa, there's something to be learned here. Well, the rest of us just looked and said, yeah, you're just a loser, you're just a stoner, you don't know what you're talking about. It turns out they were the lead, they saw the future. And when I used to listen to Joe Rogan talk about DMT on his show, and I used to listen to Terrence McKenna talk about this, it being a technology, it's not a drug, it's a technology. I thought, okay, this stoner dude, he's kind of interesting. I like to listen to him once in a while because I like tripping on mushrooms occasionally. But come on, this is bullshit. It's oversold. Joe Rogan would ask people, do you think it's a portal to another dimension? I would roll my eyes like, okay, listen, Joe, you're not even that great a comedian. I mean, I think we can all agree he's a comedian. He's not a great actor, right? I think we can all agree. And look, Joe Rogan is a famous person. Don't get me wrong. So when Joe Rogan would talk on his program about, is DMT a portal to another dimension? I would say, okay, you know what, this guy, he's an okay comedian. He's an announcer on UFC, and he's a great announcer. That's probably his best, that's his forte, is really announcing those fights. I mean, he knows his shit. Like when you're there with Joe Rogan, you're there with Joe Rogan. That man knows his UFC. But when he would talk about DMT as like, is it a portal to another dimension? I would roll my eyes because I'm like, Yale educated, as if that actually matters. And I would say, oh, what a douche. Come on. Everybody likes Joe, shut up. Until I did DMT. And then I was like, holy shit, Joe Rogan is right. It is a portal to another dimension. And that's why I can't believe that he stopped talking about it. But what happened is people would say to him, hey, Joe, you know what? Come on, shut up. What are you talking? You're going to ruin a good thing. Stop talking about DMT. And you just watched him. He sort of shrunk away from it. And he hasn't done it in a while, but we got to get Joe to do it again. You get Joe and I together, and we're going to change the world. So anyway, I want to talk about ayahuasca. I started talking about that a while ago, and then you guys got me distracted. Now listen up. So ayahuasca is an amazing, amazing situation. Because as you know, it combines DMT with a monoamine oxidase inhibitor in a brew. And when you drink that brew, you get into DMT world in a big way. You get into a breakthrough, and you stay there for hours. And you start coming out of it, you do a little more, and then you go back in. And it's fantastic. It's incredible. Now, what I didn't like about the ceremonies I've done 2 ceremonies and a self-administered ayahuasca. I mixed up DMT and a monoamine oxidase inhibitor on my own, and I got the proportions wrong, and it was a disaster. It was I learned from it. That'll be a whole nother video. But what I did not like about, I'm someone, I don't like to sit around waiting for other people. So I'm going to say the things I didn't like about it first, to get that out of the way. I didn't like having, I did, I'm going to focus on one. The first one I did. But the second one was not, it was sort of had the same downsides. You get there, and because it's still technically, you're on the hairy edge of the law, the people who run it, they want to make sure, anybody who they don't know already, they got to make sure that this guy's not a cop. He's not trying to bust them. So even though we were told to get there about 6:00 p.m. out in Joshua Tree, and the event would take place about 8 o'clock. Well, okay, I got there about 5:45 because I'm a go-getter. And come 8 o'clock, it was very clear we're not even close to launch off. And when 10 o'clock came, I had sort of started to get a little bit annoyed, like, what the fuck is going on here? And people are, it turns out a lot of these, in Southern California, a lot of these ayahuasca ceremonies, what happens is someone will rent an Airbnb for a night, and they have the ceremony in a place that they're not even familiar with, and so they're not comfortable there, and they're not even knowing who's going to show up. So there's all this like weirdness that goes on. So it wasn't until about 11 o'clock at night that we actually started to get into the ceremony. And then there's 30 minutes of basically bullshit, talking about what to expect, but you can never really prepare for it. And I had already done a bunch of DMT, so I didn't really want to hear anyone else's, I felt like, okay, I really don't need to be just, give me the damn ayahuasca. So finally, though I have to say it, there was a really cute woman. So in this Airbnb, there was a living room that might have been like 20 by 40 dimensions. And they had emptied the room. The room was empty. And people came with their mattresses, and it was like people were going like on a camping trip inside. Like, hey, let's go camping in someone's house. You bring your little mattress, and people had their little drinks, and there was probably a guy down the way that had like energy bars and shit, like he was running some kind of marathon or something. And so everyone made their little space, and I luckily got put next to this really cute woman, Nikki, her name was. And there's a weird vibe that you don't quite know, like, should I talk? Do I want to talk? Like, are you allowed to talk to the people next to you? Or because on the one hand, you sort of get this vibe like, hey, this is a very individual thing, and everyone's going to take their own from it, and they bring their own situation, and they take their own shit when they leave. And you don't quite know who you should talk to or who you don't. But I plopped myself down next to Nikki. What a cutie. And she had done it a couple of times before, and I put out a couple of feelers, and turned out she did want to talk. So we got to talking, and we hit it off. So I felt like, okay, I got a friend here. But it wasn't like some of the other people were just laying on their mattresses and their sleeping bags and their little spaces. And they weren't really overly outgoing to say, let's talk about this, Chris. So it's kind of a weird dynamic. And so when the ceremony starts, they go into this talk about how, okay, when the DMT starts to take hold, it can get a little weird. Like, people can start crying even if they're happy, and act happy, laugh, even when they're sad. So the message was, if someone next to you starts crying or acting weird, don't worry about them. Like, so the navigators of the experience said, don't you worry yourself about people around you acting weird. We'll take care of it. And before I got super whacked in a breakthrough, that all sounded fine. Okay, great. Someone freaks out next to me. What do I care? Okay, well, I'll tell you why I care. When DMT comes on, there are entities, there are alien presences, alien, not only aliens who are visual, but there are these alien like just, I can call it just an alien situation around you. That's very disturbing under those conditions it was for me out in Joshua Tree, where when it took hold, I was 100% convinced that I was about to be murdered by that group. And I got it into my head that how could I have been so stupid? I was completely set up. This is a cult. This is a murderous cult. And I had just walked into this, and how did I set myself up? And as this came on, Nikki, who was so cute, so adorable, suddenly was ghoulish, just giggling to herself. And I thought, God, she's giggling because she knows that I'm about to be murdered and chopped up into little pieces and probably eaten for breakfast. And another, Anne, I think, was the neighbor, the skinny, cute person before this happened, who became like a skeletal, just vampirish presence when this came on. And she was crying or something, but laughing and crying at the same time. And I'm like, oh shit, they're laughing about the fact that they're about to murder me, and crying too, because it's such a sad thing that they're going to have to kill this guy. And I grabbed all my shit. I grabbed my sleeping bag and my bag, and I left out. Part of the whole get ready for this thing is give us your wallet and your phone. And I was a little taken aback. I'm an American after all. What do you need my wallet and my phone for? Like, I'll turn off my phone. I've been to the movie theater. I know how this works. No. We need your phone and your wallet. Really, my wallet? They're like, we just want everyone to be safe and secure and all that. So I figure, you know what? Come on. It's a ceremony. We're all in this together. Give them my wallet and my phone. What could go wrong? Well, all of a sudden I realized these ghouls are about to murder me and chop me up and make stew out of me, and I don't even have my wallet and my phone. Oh, and your car keys, of course. You got to give your car keys. And they said in the beginning, we don't want to make sure no one drives off in the middle of this experience, right? It's all very logical. And it was logical. Turns out it was logical. But at the time, I was like,